Good morning, everybody. I hope you're all well. Um, I'd just like to talk to you today really about the skills gap that's trending through at this moment in time. A lot of the stuff that I'll be talking about is around things that we have already implemented as a business, just some ideas in terms of how we can attract more talent into the industry and how we can actually look at wider collaborations across Europe. When we first started scaling BCS across Europe, the conversation was very much around footprint. It was around megawatts. It was around sites. It was around timelines. Very few people actually started or were speaking about the talent and the talent availability. Now, every 6 months, we run a survey across Europe with 3,000 plus respondents. And it's been increasingly apparent that resource is becoming an issue. And over the past 2 to 3 years, this issue has rivaled that of power. And today, that's really our defining challenge. The scale and growth that we're experiencing is extraordinary. And I'd want to share today just how we turn that pressure into possibility. Because the next decade, it's not just about building capacity, it's about building capability. If we look at the various predictors and research that goes on about the growth of the industry and take a median, a lot of them suggest that globally the data center sector will grow from about $350 billion today to around $650 billion by 2030. The European pipeline alone exceeds 100 billion euros. This speed of growth creates delivery risk, and it manifests itself in supply chain bottlenecks, grid constraints, planning and permitting delays, but most of all in people and the availability of people. This is where our execution model actually meets our talent reality. Electricity demand is projected to reach 150 terawatt hours by 2030. IT load in the same period is predicted to breach 35 gigawatts. So it's not just a power story, it's a capability story. Every incremental megawatt requires smarter design, it requires smarter delivery, it requires tightest timescales, and we're delivering this with skills that are getting scarcer. So let's look at the challenges that we're currently facing in the delivery that are amplifying this skills gap that we're feeling. We look at build cycles, which are just getting quicker and quicker and quicker. Power and utility is an absolutely critical part of the whole project delivery and program delivery cycle, and it's requiring more and more skilled resource in order to manage that. We're seeing new technologies coming into the sector almost feels like daily. There's a fragility in the supply chain in trying to keep up with the pace. We've got over-fragmented procurement models that still focus on cost reduction rather than outcome. We get complexity that's coming into a lot of our projects, and the mobility of our labour across region is absolutely essential if we're to carry on delivering. But even with the right headcount, complexity is rising. The grid delays and equipment lead-in times are slowing programs. Planning and permitting are becoming more complex, and ESG is just coming under more intense scrutiny. Cooling technology is shifting fast, and safety standards just have to keep up. And because phases are now overlapping to hit timelines, experience is the new critical path. That's why capability is the most important accelerator that we can control. Now, just looking at that emerging gap, uptime shows workforce needs rising from about 2.3 million full-time equivalents today to around 2.8 million required in 2030. But pipeline trails by some 600,000 full-time equivalents. Just think about that for the moment, that gap, 600,000 people. So we look at that, and continuing as we are and continuing doing the way we're doing things is just not an option. A better mathematician than me worked out that the growth factor for data center delivery between now and 2030 is around about 2.6 to 3 times. In the same period, that factor stands at about 1.3 for people coming into our industry, talent coming into our industry. Even I can work out that's still a massive, massive gap that we've got to close. On top of that, we're facing retirements at the top end of our experienced scales, and we're facing really fierce competition for early careers. However, I believe if we act now, we can turn this gap into a talent magnet. One of the things that we really must face is the perception of data centers have with the public and in wider society. And really, for me, this stems from early, certainly in my career, whereby we were very secretive around data centers to the point we referred to them as dark sites, wouldn't reveal the locations they were being built in. I even had some projects where I had to sign personal NDAs about projects that I couldn't talk to anybody about them. And there's been other examples. So, for example, in the last 2 months, I was listening into a debate in the House of Lords that was debating the energy use and water use of data centers that was on data that was over 5 years old. So the messages was just completely wrong. I went to a school fair a couple of weeks ago and I was harangued by a 14-year-old about how data centers were the great Satan, delivering emissions into the environment, using up all the power, using up all the water. We also undertook a bit of a straw poll recently, just with the public, going out into the street, asking the public what they knew about data centers and could they describe a data centers. Almost everybody couldn't, had no idea what they were. Yet our mission is compelling. Society depends on us. We're the engine and heartbeat of modern society. We need to really update the public story. We need to show the purpose and we need to debunk these myths. As part of that, I did a little bit of research in terms of where our sector sits against other sectors in terms of power usage and water usage. We're not even in the top 10. But if you read the press, you read the noise around it, you would never believe that. But here's my favorite statistic. Golf courses use more water than data centers. So let's be sustainable. Let's build data centers on golf courses. I'd love to see that debated in the House of Lords. But joking aside, we really need to change this perception. And we need to change this perception by telling the impact story. And some of the examples that I've used in the past are things like, we use data centers to enable the digital transformation, driving decarbonisation. We use it for power innovations in energy efficiency, in smart grids, in electrical mobility. And we also use it for the circular economies through data analytics and AI. Data centers are absolutely intrinsic to accelerating remote connectivity and inclusion, supporting digital access to education, to healthcare, to finance, to public services, to reducing travel-related emissions, and importantly, reducing social inequality. They underpin renewable energy integration, providing the computing power for weather forecasting, grid balancing, and energy storage optimization, essential to a net zero system. They are the catalyst for innovation in circular and regenerative design, driving advancements in waste heat, reuse, water recycling, modular construction, embedded carbon reduction across the built environment ecosystem. And to that 14-year-old, I'd also say, without data centers, there's no TikTok, there's no Snapchat. Data centers are the backbone of a sustainable digital economy. They connect innovation, inclusion, and environmental progress. As I've said before, data centers are the engine room and the heartbeat of modern society. Without data centers, a modern society, a modern way of working, modern way of living just does not exist. And we need to get that message across loud and clear. So how do we bring talent into our industry? There's really 3 pillars around how we need to tackle this. There's from the supply side, there's from policymakers and collaboration, and then there's from the demand side. But we need to start leveraging this as soon as we can. But we also need to look at it from a real breadth and depth perspective and really look deeply into each of these sections in order to see what we can do. We need to look at things like workforce development and talent pipeline by growing future-ready professionals through the graduate schemes, apprenticeship schemes, and industry-aligned programs. We need to think about strategically reskilling and cross-sector transition by converting adjacent sector expertise, bringing that into data center capability via fast track and modular learning. Now, we've tried this in the past, and the stumbling block has always been the fact that whenever clients have reached out to me and said, right, I want to try something different, I want to hear a different voice, I want to hear new challenges, we need to bring somebody in from a different sector. As soon as I've done that and put them in front of it, the first thing I get pushed back on is they don't have a data center track record. We need to get beyond that. We need to recognize there are transferable skills, there are transferable capabilities, and there are different ways of doing things. We need to look at digital enablement and knowledge systems through scaling expertise, through AI, automation, and knowledge hubs that are going to multiply delivery efficiency. AI in itself is a whole different subject and can be used to take on the repetitive tasks that currently drain capacity. Some of the examples that we've used and are using are things like document automation, such as automating risk registers, executive dashboards, monthly reporting packs. We use AI to generate meeting minutes, and I'm seeing this more and more within the workplace being used. We use it to update program dashboards from live data. We run automated design checks, which can spot coordination clashes or anomalies early. We can use it to predict program slippage and highlight sequencing risks before they occur. We use it to reduce risk through predictive models by ingesting all the data center projects we've done and identifying patterns that humans will just miss. We can use it fundamentally to accelerate the project controls and reporting through things like instant and value analysis updates, auto reconciliation of cost, forecast using real-time data instead of backward-looking spreadsheets, and exception-based reporting, compressing weekly reporting cycles from hours into minutes. We can also use AI in terms of quality compliance, automation through AI vision tools detecting quality defects in MEP installations early. We're also seeing it used in automated handover matrix population and such things as O&M manuals, test sheets, and compliance evidence. It can also help with improving certainty through predictive schedule modeling, and we're looking at it for automated look-ahead planning, things of that nature. One of the big wins is reducing rework. As we all know, this is incredibly time-consuming, but it does that by detecting clashes visually long before install, highlighting deviations from the model to field by using 3D scans. We can use it also to validate commissioning test results and spot anomalies. It is predicted that AI will deliver 20 to 40% more output with the same team, allowing scalable expertise without needing proportional increase in hires. So if we look at policy partnerships and collaborations, it really is about the fact that this is a second facet, and it's creating that ecosystem through growth through, as I say, policy and partnerships. But policy enablers have got to recognise that data centres are strategic digital infrastructure, and we're starting to see that in certain countries. It's being highlighted, and it's being taken forward. But we need to link that to incentivising skills. We need to link that to training, and we need to link that to reskilling programs. And that needs to happen because then people have got a clear objective, a clear output, that they're doing something, and we're pulling people through, and that's linked to something that absolutely is recognised. We need to align policy with net zero, the digital economy, and industrial strategy goals, because that will give us, again, hard outcomes, something that we can measure ourselves against, and something that we can actually start building towards. We need to co-develop curricula and micro credentials with academia, just to create vendor-agnostic cross-industry competency standards. Policy and partnerships together form the foundation for a sustainable capability growth, and it will connect people, performance, and purpose across the data center ecosystem. So if we look onto the demand side, and really what we're looking here is doing more for less, but trying to reduce the strain while the supply side scales up. Now, for as long as I can remember, standardized design, modular, and prefabrication have been talked about in terms of doing more for less. The stumbling block has been achieving scale that makes it economically viable. And looking at the growth trajectories and the constraints that we're now facing, the question that we must ask ourselves is, have we reached the point, the inflection point, that this is now required? The data would suggest yes. In my own experience, the modular prefabrication route can compress program durations by enabling parallel offsite and on-site work. It drives faster installation. It reduces on-site testing and snagging due to the factory level QA that can be embedded. We've found that there can be a 20 to 40% program reduction, especially on MEP heavy scopes. The controlled manufacturing environment eliminates many errors common in congested high-pressure on-site environments, also leading to efficiencies. It significantly reduces on-site labour requirements, which is perfect for regions with severe data centre labour shortages. Modularisation significantly reduces rework, giving better predictability and improved safety performance. Off-site manufacturing supports more sustainable and lower carbon construction and is an enabler of repeatable standardised global delivery. It's something we should be doing. So what are we doing at BCS? We're obviously talking the talk, but we've already taken on some of these initiatives and we're seeing the benefits of those. We work smarter, not heavier. So how have we done this? We leverage AI, we leverage data, and we leverage digital delivery frameworks. And this allows us to spend more time advising by eliminating inconsistency and rework. We have a strong governance and a clarity of accountability, and that cuts down time on debating ownership and delivering more time with clients. We've created a digital knowledge base that captures feedback and project learnings. This allows new team members to understand our approach quicker and our staff to deliver with greater speed and certainty. We have a culture of accountability, autonomy, and high standards. We hire smart people and give them autonomy in delivery, clarity, and in expectations. We give them access to AI. We give them access to digital tools and direct leadership support. And we foster a culture where excellence is the default. This allows us to deliver more value faster with greater certainty while preserving the agility and personal service that clients expect. So what are the things that we can do almost immediately? What can we start now? Some of the things that we need to be looking at is actually getting consistency around our delivery regions, making sure that we have a skills academy network that we can make sure is agile, is mobile, that we can move across regions to get to those pinch points in the most appropriate time. We need to start looking at things like signing memorandums of understanding with things like forces transition programs, which we have in the UK, France, and Germany, but we can widen this out. But what that gives is a clear career path and trajectory from people coming out of those bodies back into the wider society. But we can start that engagement earlier. So once they join us, they know what the industry is about, they know what's in front of them, and they know what they need to do. Let's make prefab the default on new builds going forward. Now, we've read in the press about Bulk in terms of what they've been doing. Let's really look at that, see what the wins were, see how that can be replicated, see how we can take that forward. Let's be more transparent. Let's publish our ESG objectives and how we're performing against them. Because again, I think in terms of where we are as a sector, and certainly against the energy intensive sectors, we are leading the way in efficiency, renewable energy, and taking that on board. Let's advertise the fact that actually data centers and our sector has a wide range of career options. It gives you mobility, it gives you a global outlook, it allows you to travel, it allows you to engage with different cultures, and the career development is fantastic. So let's make sure we shout about that and get that across. Now, every growth sector hits a skills crunch. History tells us that. But we really need to start looking after our talent. We need to treat talent like it's an infrastructure. It is that important to us. Without that foundation, we can't do anything. So therefore, we need to identify it, we need to nurture it, and we need to propagate our message and make sure that's landing properly and it's being heard. We need to recognize that capability de-risks delivery and in itself becomes the competitive edge. And we are in a competition. We are competing for talent. We're competing for talent against industries that are already established, and we're competing for talent for industries that are yet to come. So let's position ourselves in absolutely the best place. So looking ahead and looking beyond 2030, what is it that we're looking at? Well, the workforce will be different. It'll be more diverse. It'll be more digitally savvy. But the foundations of what we do, that won't change. The integrity, the human touch will always be needed. Well, we'll be as a sector, hopefully more transparent. We will have proved the fact that we are more efficient, that we're embracing the energy change, moving towards the renewables. And we're absolutely communicating the benefits that we're delivering to community, to society as a whole. And coming back to that energy transition piece, we can absolutely demonstrate that the fact that we're now not bringing power to us, we are going to where the renewable power is. We are becoming more flexible in those decisions and absolutely pioneering that way. So I'll leave you with this. The next decade is not just about building capacity. It's about building capability. Let's make the UK and Europe the region that builds the most resilient infrastructure, and more importantly, the region that builds the most resilient people. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, James. I wanted to ask you a quick question. And you mentioned it at the end there. You want to make the UK and Europe the center of, building a skills pipeline. Obviously, every country in the world at the moment wants to be big when it comes to AI. And how is that global competition for specialist engineers going to affect the UK and EU talent pools? And what incentives do you think might counteract people potentially going over to the US or other countries?
I think first and foremost, there's got to be a clear strategy by the governments in the UK and in Europe. If you listen to a lot of the messaging at the moment, you're absolutely right. What we say is we want to be an AI pioneer. But what does that mean? If you look at AI, it's a many-layered and tempered thing. So we've got to be clear in terms of what that AI is and what that means to us and what that's going to do. So once you get that clarity of strategy, you've then got to start investing in it. Because what we have at the moment, again, is a lot of noise. But unless you get that investment, you get that traction, you create that noise, you create that buzz, how the hell are you going to attract people into it? So you've actually got to do what you promise you say you're going to do. And it comes back actually to a point I made earlier, is that a lot of the government strategies, not just here, but in Europe, are based on outmoded data and outmoded thinking. And what we need to do is start thinking forwardly rather than reacting to what's already happened. And that's a bit of a mind switch, but nevertheless, it needs to be done. It's absolutely critical going forward.
And I guess it's a perfect, not to get too political, but it's probably a perfect opportunity with many in the US who are especially on visas from countries like India and places like that, maybe thinking that they want to go elsewhere. So, if we can attract the talent, this is a perfect opportunity to sort of stake our ground and sort of go, the UK and Europe are perfect places to come and share your talent. We welcome that
No,
talent.
absolutely. And, I mentioned the fact that we're in a fight for talent, and we should go looking for that talent wherever it is and
Yeah.
not be afraid to have that fight.
Yeah.
And as I say, one of the ways to do that is show people what we're doing. Let's shout about it. We are probably some of the market leaders in terms of data center delivery and what we do. Again, we really need to publicize that. We really need to market that and really build off that.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you very much, James. I'm going to let you go.
Okay, thank you.